just went straight in there. I just dove right in. No foreplay, just got right in there. Hello my beautiful friends, so my name is Alexandria and today I'm going to be sitting down to film another monthly wrap up for you all. This is a little bit on the later side, but better late than never. I am so excited to talk about all of the books that I ended up reading in the month of March. It was definitely a hectic one. I have a whole vlog where I talk a little bit about more of what went on last month. It was a really good start. The middle was very difficult, but we are on the road to feeling a lot better, feeling a lot more like myself, and so I am very excited to be at this place right now. So if you would like to see all of the books that I read and hear me talk about them a little bit and what I thought about them, then just keep on watching. Alright, so let's go ahead and just dive right into them. I am, like I said, it is a little bit on the later side and a lot happened last month, so I do kind of have to jog my memory when it comes to the synopsis of these books because I don't remember everything. The first book that I read in the month of March was Destiny's Embrace, and this is by Beverly Jenkins. This is the first like legitimate, I feel like, okay, I don't want to say legitimate because that feels, I don't know, it feels wrong to say that, but it's one of those like classic romances, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed every second of it, to be perfectly honest. It was a really beautiful lift after some of the more heavier reads, the more in-depth reads that I was partaking in for the month of February. And it was just like a perfect little breather. So I'm definitely going to be incorporating more romance novels from this specific author and also other authors in between more of my heavier books, just to like give me a little bit of lightness. So this story is following a woman named Mariah Cooper, and she is basically living in a space where she's very unhappy with her life. She hasn't gotten married, she hasn't moved out of her mother's house, her relationship with her mother isn't the best, trying not to give spoilers. Basically this woman is, like I said, kind of at a stage in her life where she's very unhappy and not really knowing what direction she wants to go in her life. She comes across an opportunity to move to California to be a housekeeper for this man, and yeah, it's a historical fiction and everything kind of just starts from that point. Something that was woven throughout the story was her experience of growing up in her mother's household and kind of realizing how not great that situation was for her, and her kind of taking her power back in that situation. I felt like Mariah was built as this character that was supposed to not be like the stereotypical like damsel in distress type of character. But there were times where she would slip into that and it just kind of felt a little bit confusing and not cohesive when it came to the story. But I was willing to overlook that because man, the steamy bits. I thought Talia Hibbert got me with that, and she does. When it comes to like current things, and like present moment steam, if that makes any sense. That's where Talia Hibbert gets me. But Beverly Jenkins, I love me some historical fiction. This is something that isn't as gone into depth with when it comes to historical fiction, I feel like at times, or at least the historical fiction that I've read. Maybe I just haven't been reading the right stuff, but this was definitely bravo. I thoroughly enjoyed it. At times the male character Logan was a little bit aggressive and not in a way that was like enjoyable. It felt like it was crossing a few boundaries a little bit and was kind of like the whole wearing someone down in order to like get what you want from them, but like they also want that thing too, but like you gotta let people move at their own pace, you know? How dare she be immune to his charms? Did she not know his reputation with the ladies? And all I said was ew. So that was where I wasn't enjoying the male character. I thought the story was good, I thought the romance was good, I thought the kind of conflict that was going on throughout the story was told really well, and I liked the setting, and probably immediately, or if not like soon after I bought the second one in the series, because I think it's like centering around the like estate. Is it an estate? I don't think it's an estate. I think it's just like a plot of land where there's like houses or something. I don't know. And also an issue that I did have throughout it was just like the editing of it too. There were certain words that were spelled wrong, or like certain things that were said in ways that didn't make any logical sense to me. But like at one point I made a note of this. It said Maria instead of Mariah, and I was just like, wait, what? Who's Maria? You just gotta be in the right place in the right time to be reading this, because if you're not, you just won't be happy. If you are not afraid of the romance, if you're not afraid of the smut, do it. Do it. We're really putting myself on blast with the type of person that I am. Moving on, the next book that I read was Red Rising. This is by Pierce Brown, and this is the first book in the Red Rising series. I read this for the War Games Readathon. Also, wow, I didn't even say before this, I did end up winning the War Games Readathon. I did not win the Tinkerbell Readathon because I didn't finish the group book by the end of the month. Sad. But I did end up finishing it at the beginning of this month, so there's that. Red Rising was, oh my god, so fucking good. Maybe it was because my expectations were just very low. I was trying not to get too excited because I had heard people talking about it. I had had it on my TBR for quite a while because I heard people saying good things about it. I didn't really know what it was about, but the way that I would hear the people who were like running the War Games Readathon talking about Red Rising, the ones who had read it, I was just like, ooh, that sounds spicy, that sounds tasty, let's try that out. This is a beautiful thing. This says, I live for the dream that my children will be born free, that they will be what they like, that they will own the land their father gave them. And he said, I live for you. She kisses his cheek and says, then you must live for more. When I started reading this book, I was shook. I started this, actually, I was at my parents' house, letting my child play in their backyard, and I was almost crying. I'm not sure if it was because I was just feeling burnt out from life in general, but I feel like it was mainly the book because it hit me in ways that I was not expecting. So this is following our main character named Darrow, and he is basically living in a society where everyone is in essentially like factions. But it's really interesting the way that the like kind of factions are separated because it's all based off of a specific color. He is basically in the lowest of the low of this society. He is unknowingly, that's the crazy part about this book. These people are unknowingly slaves to this greater mission, apparently. I'm trying not to give spoilers about things, but it's very difficult. Basically, the Reds are doing this work that's supposed to be for the greater good of the entirety of humankind, but little do they know that they're just slaves to the man, essentially, which is an interesting metaphor for real life. We're not going to talk about that right now. I absolutely loved this book. There were so many different pieces to this story, and so much depth, and so much emotion that I just couldn't even deal with it all, to be perfectly honest, and I wasn't expecting it. Something that I wasn't expecting as well was that the voice of the main character was something that was so powerful to me, and was something that I wasn't super annoyed with, because there are a lot of times where I have to tread very carefully when it comes to like specifically like cis male main characters in books. I'm looking at you, fucking Wade, Ready Player One, because I did not like him. Sometimes they can fall into a very unpleasant space, and it's just not very enjoyable to read from that perspective. I did get kind of similar vibes to like, he kind of could do no wrong at times, but he definitely did go through a lot of really, really challenging things. It talked a lot about like trauma and how deeply that affects you, and grief, and the way that we experience that and how that shows up differently. Moving through different stages of our lives and working towards a purpose, and how that can evolve and change based on certain circumstances in your life. And like, I'm trying not to give spoilers to everything, but it is very similar to the Hunger Games. But if you've read the Hunger Games, it's like the Hunger Games but on acid. I didn't mean to say acid. It's like the Hunger Games, but on steroids. There was a lot of depictions of war and like fighting and stuff like that, but I feel like the way that it was told was so interesting and so descriptive, but not like disrespectful and not like fighting violence porn. The fact that there were children going through these experiences just brought another level to all of these things. It's very, very intense, but that intensity is really what kept me going through that book. And it's not a small book. It's not a super big book either, but I got through it really quickly because it was just so enticing, and the way that it was written just like pulled me in, and I'm so fucking excited to read the next one. It's on my TBR for this month. So the next book that I read was The Obelisk Gate. This is by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy, and holy shit, this was so good. What I can say about this series, and I did talk about this in a previous video, maybe I'll actually remember to put a link to it somewhere on the screen. I absolutely love the first book, but what I can say about this series, and that I've heard other people say about it, is that it is a little bit on the confusing side. And that is because there's so much world building, there's so much depth. This is high fantasy. This is the type of shit that like you need to have references for the references in order to fully understand and grasp everything that's going on. I need a glossary. I need a dictionary. I need a thesaurus. I need all of these things in order to understand what's going on, because right now I'm just reading this shit and I'm like, what? So that's kind of how I felt during the first book, but I felt like the second book kind of gave me a little bit more closure and gave me some more answers to certain things, and I felt like my brain was able to grasp certain concepts that were told in the first book a little bit more. Like it kind of came, not full circle, but like a little bit more, you know, just moving along. And I've heard that the third book just like wraps up everything perfectly, and so I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked to read the third book this month. I feel like I was like at the precipice. I was like, I think I get it, but I don't fully get it. Basically, they live in a world it's very much set in the future, kind of a dystopian world, where there is something called fifth seasons. And so we have summer, winter, spring, fall, and then there's this thing that's like a fifth season that is always kind of this catastrophic event that happens. And so at the beginning of the first book, it's in the beginning stages of this fifth season starting to happen, which is really interesting because you see how this society has basically learned to adapt to just like expecting these things to happen, and how they live their lives after the thing happens, but also preparing for the thing to happen, if that makes any sense. Not only that, we have these fifth seasons that are happening, there is also a kind of different race of humans that have evolved that are called origins, and basically they have the ability to like move the tectonic plates. I don't know exactly like how to perfectly describe exactly what they do, but it has to do with like the earth and stuff like that. That was one thing that like my brain just could not get when I read the first book. But when I read the second one, I felt like I was able to understand it a little more deeply. They have this power to be able to do these things to the earth and to be able to kind of like control the fifth season to a certain extent. And you would think that society would be like, hey, wow, you guys are great. Let's make you like really amazing people and take care of you because you're taking care of us and it'll be all fine and dandy and great. No, they don't do that. I kind of understand, because when people have a lot of power, the people in power are threatened by that, but it's also very frustrating because like if you just supported these people in harnessing their abilities to be able to support you and themselves, then we wouldn't like, you'd be able to live a lot more easily, and like it wouldn't be so stressful, and like, why are you causing more problems for yourself? Like humans always do this shit. Why do we always have to make things hard for ourselves? Why? In the first book, she has arrived home to find out that her husband has killed her little baby son and has kidnapped her daughter, who are both of this certain type of person. She basically goes on this journey to find this man, maybe seek revenge. Whatever happens, happens. And also some other things are happening as well, but it's kind of hard to talk about without giving spoilers. I feel like the last couple months has just been solidifying the fact that I really, really love science fiction. And being able to read science fiction from Black authors with Black characters, diversity in sexualities and fluidity, and just like so much, just like, it just makes me so happy inside. It makes me feel so seen. It makes me just feel a lot of things that science fiction probably would not have made a lot of people feel otherwise. Love this book, highly suggest it. If you're intimidated by it, just try it. So the next book that I read was Annihilation. Annihilation is another science fiction novel, and this was something that I was really nervous about reading because I heard that it was like science fiction horror. So I only watched half of Annihilation because I can't handle certain aspects that were in that movie, and I had watched video essays and stuff because that's what I do, to learn more about it because that's what I do. And I heard that the book was really good, and I also heard that it was different from the movie, and so I decided to try it out. This is in the Southern Reach series, and this is basically following specifically one main character. They don't have any names in this book. They are called by what their title is. And basically you have a group of women. You have a biologist, a surveyor, a psychologist, and oh shit, what was the other one? You have 4 people going into this area that has basically come out of nowhere. They have been sending groups of people into this unknown zone to figure out how the fuck it got there, what the fuck it's doing there, and how come when and if people come out of this space, they are forever changed or they die. There's a lot of weird shit that's happening. There's not a lot that I can say, but it's really fucking weird. I used this for the unreliable narrator prompt, and wow, it perfectly fit that prompt because this narrator was extremely unreliable for many reasons, but mainly because of the environment that she was in. But not only that, it was also because of her intentions for being in that environment, which made her unreliable. And wow, it was a ride. It was a doozy. I was confused. I was conflicted. I was in pain. I was suffering. I was unhappy. But it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I am excited to read the next one for some strange reason. I heard that the next one isn't that great, that it falls into like the second book syndrome, but I still want to read it because I want to know more about Area X. The book gave me similar vibes to the movie, but the movie just amplified those, if that makes sense, and made it more like palatable. Like I could taste it. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is Take a Hint, Dani Brown. This is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy by Talia Hibbert. And wow, I heard so many people talking about this book and how it was better than Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and I highly agree. I'm not sure if the next one will be able to top this one because of how good this one was. Wow, I really enjoyed it. So it's basically following the second sister, whose name is Dani Brown, and she is doing her own thing, living her life. She is not a doctor yet, but she's in school. She's like doing her thing. She's like a professor. Is she a professor? She's teaching something at a school. All of this being said, she would very much enjoy having, you know, that intimacy from being with a nice man. Why am I talking like this? Basically, she wants a friends with benefits. Maybe not even friends, maybe just the benefits. And it's so funny because she like does a ritual to call in this man into her life, or woman, because she's actually bisexual. It's really funny, and I really enjoy those aspects of kind of her spirituality because I am as well a very spiritual person. I didn't really relate to the main character other than in those areas as much as I related to the male counterpart. The synopsis of the story is that he's like a security guard at the building that she works in, and they're friends. They kind of have this banter, but they don't like they're not like into each other like that. So basically a fire drill happens in the building and he ends up saving her, and some pictures end up being put on social media and it kind of blows up. And so they get into this fake dating situation. Now, I did not think that I would like a fake dating trope, because you know how many like Netflix movies that I've seen with this trope and I did not enjoy? Thought it was stupid, thought it was played out. But I really enjoyed the directions that this went and the decisions that were made in the process of making this book. I fully support and advocate for this book. This man, I want this to be made into a movie. Okay, this man, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I love him because I want to be with him or because I feel like I am him. I think it's all of the things. I felt so seen by this person. If you want to know what I'm like and what it's like to be in my body and be in my head, read this book and look at him, and that's a lot like me. It was like she pulled things out of my head and put this into this character, and I was like, I was not expecting this. Why am I crying? So basically he deals with anxiety. It is talked about so well and with so much grace and with so much just like respect. I almost want to cry right now because like it just made me feel so seen. Talia Hibbert is so good at doing this, because I felt this so much in Get a Life, Chloe Brown, with her dealing with a chronic illness and kind of feeling like she wasn't being seen or heard when it came to like people who were supposed to be supportive in her life. She felt misunderstood even by like doctors and stuff like that, and I've definitely gone through that in my experience. Everything else was just kind of overshadowed by him, because he wasn't only like, as the kids like to call him, a cinnamon roll of a character, which is like the perfect description. He was just the sweetest, like just wholesome. I want him and I am him and I want to be him and I want to be with him. So do I want to be with myself? Probably. I think it's been a long time since I've been like in love with a character like this. She just manages to balance the like depth of these characters, and then also the smut is just, it's so good. I highly suggest reading this book. It totally lives up to the hype, and the representation is so important and the perspectives are so important, and she just does it so fucking well. And I'm so excited to read the last book in the series. Also sad because I don't want it to be over. The next book that I read was Avatar, the Smoke and Shadow kind of series. So they're basically separated into 3 sections each series. So there's like the Rift, the Promise, something else, and then this one is Smoke and Shadow. This is in the Avatar The Last Airbender series, and I really love the graphic novels. They're really good if you want to continue on, because I always have this feeling after I finish a series where I'm like, I just want more. I just want to be in this world more. I didn't enjoy this set as much as I've enjoyed other ones. I did enjoy it, so there's that. So I read that graphic novel, and then the next book that I read was Wild Seed by Octavia E. Butler. It was a lot of things, and I still don't know how I feel about it. I don't even think I've given it a rating on Goodreads. I did not enjoy it, but I didn't really enjoy it either, and it was kind of hard to get through. One thing that I realized that kind of made me be like, oh, well, okay, that makes sense. About my feelings towards this book was the fact that apparently it's a prequel to the series. If I had known going in that it was going to be a prequel, I think I would have approached it a little bit differently. Like my mindset would have been a little bit differently. Basically, this is following 2 main characters, and all I can really say about them is that they both just live for a very long time. There are 2 very different reasons why they can live for a long time, and they go about this in very different ways. And so that was a very interesting aspect to just the entire story. Obviously, it was following their lives for a very long period of time, because they can live for a long period of time. And so there were a lot of different like stories and experiences going on. And I liked the fact that despite the fact that there was such a long period of time that was being spoken about, you were still able to see kind of the nuances and changes in the characters themselves. But there were some things that were like kind of hard pills to swallow and hard things to get through. One of the main things was that there was a lot of incest in this book. The way that it went about it was not in like the way that you might think. I was able to get through it without being like too put off by that, but I definitely want to make sure that people are aware of that. I'm interested in continuing on with the series and seeing where it goes from this point, because it ended very ambiguously. So I did start reading the Gilded Ones this month, but I didn't finish it until the beginning of April. So I'm going to go ahead and wait until that wrap up to talk about that book. But I did start that at the end of March. All right, so the last book that I'm going to talk about that I read for the month of March is going to be The Princess Theory. This is another romance novel. And this is by Alyssa Cole. I had read When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole sometime last year, I think. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and so I wanted to try out her romance because I've heard a lot of people talk about it as being really good, and I tried it out and I didn't really enjoy it, to be perfectly honest. And so this is following our main character, who is living a life that is very hectic. She has multiple jobs and she is in grad school, and she does not have any time for pretty much anything. Not taking care of herself, not really her friends, not really relationships, not going out and having fun. And so she ends up starting to get these emails from a prince in some random country, or at least she thinks it's a random country, in Africa, who's saying that she is a princess and that he wants to marry her, or they're betrothed, or some kind of nonsense. And she's just like, what the fuck is this shit? They need to stop. Little does she know that it's actually the truth. So we have the other main character, who is the prince, and the story is also told from his perspective. So this feels like two different books in one, to be perfectly honest. The first half of the book is this very overbearing, annoying man just inserting himself into this woman's life who does not want him at all. Really, just in my eyes, an unredeemable character. He's kind of like, if you think of like a princely character, that's who he would be. And that was the main reason why I really didn't enjoy this book. Even like the steamy parts didn't save it for me, because I just was not vibing with their relationship. And like I said, it felt like two different books in one book. The first part of it is kind of like his pursuit, and then the next part is he kind of like sits back a little bit, and they're like in a different environment, and it's kind of weird, and it feels a little bit more fairy tale-esque. I don't know, it didn't feel like cohesive to me. And there's like a mystery aspect to a certain portion. And after reading Take a Hint, Dani Brown, I was not in the mood for the shenanigans. Even after reading Destiny's Embrace, which I thought was going to be less impactful than it was. I wish I was ending off on a better note for this video, but yeah, I just wasn't a fan. It wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I wish I could overlook certain things and certain aspects, but a lot of it just felt very like controlling and unhealthy. I may continue on with the series because there is a queer love story in this series. That's the main reason why I wanted to read it, because I thought that it would be good enough for me to get to that point. And I don't know. I think I might continue just to see if maybe it gets better. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of any of these books down below if you have read any of them. Also, let me know any of the good books that you might have read in the month of March. I would love to hear about them. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you're finding joy in whatever way it is that you can. I love you. Bye.